Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle one of the biggest health challenges of our time, AIDS. We're going to trace its path, really from this terrifying unknown to a condition that we can now manage. All right, let's dive in. I want to start with a number. Just look at this. Over 25 million. That's how many people have been killed by AIDS since it was first reported. It's an absolutely staggering figure, and it really puts the scale of this epidemic into perspective.
So how on earth did we get here? First, let's just try to understand the sheer scale of this thing. AIDS really is a modern global syndrome, one that felt like it just appeared out of nowhere and completely changed the world.
Okay, so let's break down the name itself. AIDS. It stands for Acquired Immunodeficiency Syndrome. And the key word there, the really important one, is acquired. This means it's something you get during your life, right? It's not something you're born with. And syndrome just means it's a whole collection of symptoms that show up together.
Just look at this timeline for a second. The very first case was reported back in 1981. And in just a little over 25 years, it went from a total medical mystery to a full-blown global crisis, claiming those 25 million lives we just talked about. I mean, the speed at which it spread was, well, it was just unbelievable.
So what's actually causing all this? To figure that out, we have to zoom in, way in, to the microscopic level and meet the actual culprit behind the syndrome. And that's a virus called HIV.
HIV. It stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. Now, scientifically, it's a special type of virus known as a retrovirus. So what does that mean? Well, most life, including us, runs on a DNA blueprint. But a retrovirus is different. It uses RNA. And here's the kicker. It carries this special little tool that lets it work backward, rewriting its own RNA code into our DNA. And that is absolutely crucial for understanding how it attacks our bodies.
Understanding how HIV gets from one person to another is, well, it's everything when it comes to prevention. Transmission happens in a few very specific ways: through sexual contact with someone who is infected, through a transfusion of contaminated blood, by sharing infected needles, which is a major risk for intravenous drug users, and it can also be passed from an infected mother to her child during pregnancy.
You know, it's just as important to be crystal clear about how HIV is not transmitted. It only spreads through specific body fluids. It does not, and I really want to emphasize this, it does not spread through casual contact. You can't get it from a hug or a handshake or sharing a meal. And knowing that difference is so critical for fighting the awful stigma that can isolate people from their friends and family.
Okay, so we've met the virus. Now let's get into how it wages this systematic war on our body's own defenses. How does HIV infection actually lead to AIDS?
Well, one of the sneakiest things about HIV is its long incubation period. You see, after someone gets infected, there's this time lag, a silent phase before the actual symptoms of AIDS show up. And this phase can last anywhere from a few months to more typically 5 to 10 years. And all that time, a person can feel totally fine, totally healthy, but they can still pass the virus on to others.
So what's actually going on inside the body during all those years? It's basically a hostile takeover. First, the virus gets inside a specific type of immune cell called a macrophage. Then, using that special tool we talked about, it rewrites its RNA into DNA. This new viral DNA then gets woven right into the cell's own DNA, essentially hijacking it. At that point, the cell is turned into a literal HIV factory, just churning out endless copies of the virus. And those new viruses then go on to attack the generals of our immune system, the helper T lymphocytes. And as these T lymphocytes get destroyed, the body's defenses just crumble. This leads to the classic symptoms we associate with AIDS, things like constant fever, diarrhea, and weight loss. But the real danger is that the person becomes incredibly vulnerable to all sorts of other infections that a healthy immune system would normally just swat away. Things like certain bacteria, fungi, and parasites. The body simply loses its ability to protect itself. Now, we do have powerful drugs that can help manage HIV for years, sometimes decades, but they aren't a cure. The virus is still there, and that's why the single most powerful weapon we have in this fight is prevention. Because there is no cure for AIDS, avoiding infection in the first place is, well, it's everything. Don't die of ignorance. This quote really says it all, doesn't it? HIV infection isn't like catching a cold. It spreads through very specific, very understood behaviors. And that means that knowledge is our best shield.
So what does prevention look like in the real world?
Well, health organizations like the World Health Organization focus on these clear, proven strategies. Making sure the blood supply in blood banks is safe from HIV.
insisting on the use of disposable needles, distributing free condoms and promoting safe sex, getting a handle on intravenous drug abuse, and encouraging regular checkups for anybody who might be at high risk.
But here's the thing. Prevention isn't just about individual choices. Fighting AIDS is a collective responsibility for all of us as a society. And compassion is every bit as vital as any medicine.
If we're really going to control this epidemic, we have to be able to talk about it openly. Hiding an HIV infection is dangerous because it lets the virus keep spreading to people who have no idea they're at risk. Creating a world where people feel safe enough to get tested and know their status is absolutely critical. At the end of the day, this is about people, not just a virus. People living with HIV or AIDS need our help and our sympathy. They don't deserve to be shunned. When we isolate people out of fear, it only makes the crisis worse for everyone. It's a problem we can only solve together.
So that really leaves us with the big question, right? This is a challenge we can only overcome when medicine and society truly work together, hand in hand. The real question is, how can each of us play a part in making that happen, in fighting the stigma, and in stopping the spread of this disease? Thanks so much for joining me today.